Welcome back, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into anticonvulsant medications.
Yeah, some pretty fascinating stuff. We've got all these medical texts, the usual suspects.
But we also have something a little different this time, a song, actually.
Which is, well, it's not your typical source material.
Right. It gives us a really personal perspective on what it's like to actually live with epilepsy.
That's right, and we'll be getting into all that, really breaking down how these medications work.
Different types, too.
Yeah, different types. And I think, what we really want to emphasize is why choosing the right one is so crucial. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Before we get into the medications, though,
Mm-hmm.
can we talk about what a seizure actually is? I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding out there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, people think of a seizure as a condition,
Mm.
but it's a symptom. It's like, think of it like an electrical storm in the brain.
Oh,
Suddenly all these different symptoms pop up, muscle spasms, changes in awareness.
almost like a power surge, like when your electronics go haywire.
Perfect analogy, exactly. And just like with electronics, different things can cause those surges. That's why there are so many different anticonvulsant medications.
It's not a simple fix.
Right, they're all targeting different parts of the brain. The brain's wiring is so intricate.
Speaking of the brain, I've always heard about these things called GABA and glutamate and how they're involved in seizures.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. So those are neurotransmitters, which are like messengers in the brain. They let the brain cells talk to each other.
Okay.
And they have this push and pull relationship. Anxious, it's like the brakes. It calms things down.
Gotcha.
And then you've got glutamate, which is like the gas pedal. It excites things.
Okay, so too much glutamate, and that's where the seizure happens.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but you're on the right track. It's all about balance. An imbalance between these two can lead to seizures.
That makes sense. So some medications are working on the GABA side, some on the glutamate.
Exactly. Some boost the effects of GABA, making those brakes stronger. Others try to, kind of dampen down the glutamate, ease off the gas a bit.
So you've got different types of anticonvulsants, each targeting a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the GABA-focused meds, you have ones like benzodiazepines.
Oh, like Xanax and stuff?
Exactly. A lot of people know them as anxiety meds,
Mm-hmm.
but they actually enhance the effects of GABA directly. So they're making the brakes even stronger, so to speak.
So it's not just about having enough GABA, it's about making it work better.
You got it. And then there are meds like tiagabine.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it prevents GABA from breaking down too quickly.
So it stays around longer.
Exactly. It's like, imagine stopping the cleanup crew from removing the brake fluid.
So you have more to work with.
Right, more available. But there's another layer to this whole GABA thing.
Oh.
It doesn't work alone, right? It has to interact with specific receptors on brain cells.
Okay.
And there are a ton of these receptors.
Oh, wow.
And some medications actually target these receptors directly. So it's like,
Even more fine-tuning.
yes, fine-tuning the GABA system in a really precise way.
It's like you're, adjusting different settings on a control panel?
Exactly. And this is precisely why finding the right medication for each person is so tricky. You have to consider the type of seizure, the side effects, other meds they might be taking. It gets complicated.
Definitely. This makes me think about the song we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Because it talks about the effects of medication, but also what it's like to live with epilepsy emotionally.
It's powerful stuff. The lyrics, they talk about this feeling of being medicated and things finally feeling normal.
I can imagine.
But there's also this hint of like a struggle for acceptance, the fear of being seen as different.
Yeah, and there's this one line I keep thinking about.
Yeah.
It says, Me medicaram e agora eu tô legal. Não fica assustada, baby. Isso é normal.
It's like they're asking for reassurance.
Yeah, like, don't be afraid, this is me now. It shows how much this impacts people emotionally. It's not just about stopping the seizures.
Absolutely. Treating epilepsy, it's not just about finding the right pill. It's about supporting the whole person.
Right. Their feelings, their relationship.
Their sense of self. It's a lot bigger than just the medical side of things.
It makes me think we've only just dipped our toes in the water here.
Yeah.
We've talked about GABA, but I know there are other types of anticonvulsants too, right?
Yeah.
What about those sodium channel blockers?
Oh, yeah. Those work in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And they're super important for a lot of people with epilepsy.
Okay, well, let's talk about those next.
Sounds good to me. All right, so we're shifting gears a bit now.
Right.
Let's talk sodium channel blockers.
Yeah, you mentioned those earlier.
They're kind of like a traffic calming measures for the brain, you could say.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How does that even work?
So neurons, right, they use electrical signals to communicate.
Yeah, so they talk to each other.
Right. And sodium channels, they're like these gateways that let those signals travel along the neuron.
So they're important for the brain to function normally.
Exactly. But during a seizure, those signals, they're firing way too fast.
Oh, so it's like a highway with no speed limit.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
a great way to put it. And that's where sodium channel blockers come in. They basically slow down that traffic, those signals.
So they don't completely stop the signals.
No, it's more like they just make sure things are moving at a safe speed.
Ah, okay. I get it. Like putting in some speed bumps.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a bunch of different sodium channel blockers out there, each with their own, quirks and benefits.
Like what?
Well, you've got phenytoin, carbamazepine, lamotrigine. Those are some of the big ones.
So they all basically do the same thing.
Well, they all work on sodium channels, but they're not all created equal, so to speak. Some are better for certain types of seizures than others.
Oh, right, because we talked about all those different types earlier.
Exactly. Like phenytoin, that one's really interesting because it's known to kind of contain seizures.
Contain them.
Yeah, it's like creating a fire break,
Right.
to stop the seizure from spreading to other parts of the brain.
Wow, so it's not just slowing things down, it's actually targeting where it's starting.
Yep, you got it. But then you have something like ethosuximide, which is actually a calcium channel blocker, and it's particularly good for those absence seizures.
Wait, calcium channel blockers. We haven't talked about those yet.
Oh, right. Yeah, we kind of jumped ahead there.
So how are those different?
So calcium, it plays a big role in how neurons release those neurotransmitters we were talking about earlier, GABA and glutamate.
Oh, okay.
Calcium channel blockers, they regulate that flow of calcium,
Okay.
which in turn influences how excitable those neurons are. So they're not directly targeting GABA or glutamate, but they're kind of working behind the scenes.
So they're like, what, adjusting the volume knob on those signals?
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And in this category, you've got medications like valproic acid, gabapentin.
So many different options.
I know, right? It's like a whole orchestra of different approaches, but that's why understanding these mechanisms is so important.
Yeah, it's getting pretty complex.
It is. But it helps doctors figure out the best treatment for each person, taking into account all these factors.
You know, this reminds me of something in the song lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
There's a line about dietary restrictions. It says, non como carne, non como baña. So it's not just about medication, is it?
Right. Lifestyle changes, diet, sometimes even surgery can be part of the picture.
Wow, it's a whole approach.
It is. It's all about finding that right balance for each person, and it's a real team effort between the person with epilepsy and their doctor.
Empowering them to live their best life, not just controlling the seizures.
Exactly. And the song, I think, really captures that. Like the lyrics, they talk about the confusion and disorientation during a seizure, the impact on relationships, the desire for things to just be normal.
Yeah, that line again. Me medicaram y agora y tô legal. Não fique assustada, baby. Isso é normal. It's so, I don't know, just gets to me.
It's really powerful, isn't it? Like this plea to be understood, to be seen.
Exactly. It's about so much more than just the seizures themselves.
It really is. And it reminds us that, we need to approach epilepsy with empathy and compassion. It's about the whole person, not just the condition.
And it makes me wonder, are there other, promising treatments out there? What about those glutamatergic medications we talked about before?
Oh, yeah. Those are still mostly experimental, but they're definitely an exciting area of research.
How are those different from the others?
Well, so far we've mostly talked about medications that work on the brakes, like GABAergic drugs.
Right.
Glutamatergic medications, they're looking at ways to modulate the gas pedal, so to speak. Glutamate, remember?
Oh, right. So could that be a way to, prevent seizures without some of the downsides of the other meds?
That's the hope. Like some medications can cause sedation or even dependence.
Yeah.
With glutamatergic meds, the goal is to prevent those seizures without those unwanted side effects.
But it sounds like it's pretty tricky to get right.
It is. The challenge is to target the specific glutamate receptors that are involved in seizures without, messing up normal brain function.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is, but the potential benefits, they're huge. Imagine being able to fine-tune the brain's excitability, prevent seizures, all without those nasty side effects.
That would be amazing. I really hope that research keeps moving forward.
Me too. The more we learn about the brain, the better those treatments will become.
You know, there's another line in the song that I can't get out of my head. It says, Baby me prometa que vai sempre me amar.
Yeah, it's such a vulnerable line, isn't it?
It is. It makes me think about how important it is to feel loved and accepted, especially when you're going through something like this.
Absolutely. It speaks to that deeper need for connection, for belonging,
Yeah.
to be loved for who you are, regardless of any condition.
It's about so much more than just the medical stuff.
It really is. And it reminds us that true healing, it goes beyond just pills and procedures. It's about hope, understanding, and empowerment.
I love that. Wow, I feel like we've really gone deep on these medications.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, for sure.
GABA, sodium channels, calcium channels.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many different ways there are to target seizures,
It really is. And I think what's most exciting is how we can really tailor these treatments now.
Yeah, it's not just a one-size-fits-all anymore.
Right. It's about finding what works best for each person, their specific type of seizure, their lifestyle.
It's about seeing them as an individual, not just a patient.
Exactly. And honestly, for me, what really brings it all home is that song.
Me too. It's so powerful.
It's one thing to read about the science,
Right.
but to hear those lyrics, to feel that emotion,
Yeah, it really makes you connect with what people are going through.
it reminds us that we're not just talking about neurons and chemicals here.
Right. These are real people's lives.
Exactly. Their fears, their struggles, their hopes.
And it makes you think, what can we do with all this information? We can't all be doctors.
True, but we can all be advocates.
Yeah, just understanding epilepsy better.
That's a huge step already. You can educate others, challenge misconceptions.
Create a more supportive environment.
Exactly. So it's not just about the medication.
It's about changing how we think about epilepsy.
Yes. Imagine a world where people with epilepsy didn't feel like they had to hide it.
Where they could be open about their experiences.
Without fear of judgment.
I love that.
That's the kind of change we can all work towards.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so important, We've gone beyond the textbooks.
We've looked at the human side of it all.
And that human side is what drives everything, right? The research, the treatments, the advocacy.
It's a constant reminder that science and empathy, they need to go hand in hand.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot today. We talked about the different medications, the emotional side of epilepsy, thanks to that amazing song.
We've seen how far we've come in treating this condition.
But also how much further we need to go.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
How can you, as a listener, use this knowledge to make a difference?
How can we be allies?
It starts with awareness, with understanding.
And with compassion.
Yes. Because ultimately, this is about recognizing our shared humanity.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new, and we hope you'll keep exploring this important topic. See you next time.